Welcome to the Wedco podcast, where wedding wisdom meets street smarts.
We're dishing out all the tips, tricks, and wedding goss to take your wedding to the next level.
Time to ditch the formalities and get this party started. Hello and welcome to the Wedco podcast. I'm Toga.
And I'm Joel, and we're here at the beautiful Greenview in Cabarita.
And today we have Natalie from Under the Arbour with us. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
It's
So good.
We've been waiting for this moment. We started this podcast so we could have you on, and now we are here. Our life is complete. Thank you so much.
This is the final episode.
Let's call it the Grand Slam.
Exactly.
Yeah, the grand finale, all the things.
But no, seriously, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
It's going to be a fun chat.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I'm stoked to be here.
Maybe we can start with a little bit of a background about your story and how Under the Arbour came to be.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I've been in the wedding industry from the early days. After I finished studying event management, I got a scholarship to work on an island up in the Whitsundays called Hayman.
As you do.
You did indeed.
Yeah. So that was really the early part of my career. So I stayed on to be a wedding planner at Hayman.
Oh, cool.
And so I got some really great planning experience. At the time, it was one of the leading hotels of the world.
Yep.
And we used to have a maximum capacity of 500 guests.
Do you know what year this was when you started there?
Oh, 2007. I think that's 17 years ago.
I shot my first wedding at Hayman, but it was 2010. I was like hoping it was the same time. Anyway, sorry, keep going.
That's really cool. Yeah. So back in the day, it was 1-to-1 ratio of experience. So in terms of staff and guests. Okay. So it was pretty incredible. And we used to live on the island.
Yep.
And through that, I really developed my passion for the wedding industry. And I worked through an entire season at Hayman. And for me, the pinnacle of what I thought my career was going to be was working in sport. And I'd had the dream to work one day with the Olympics. And it appeared the timing was then.
There you go.
And now. So I accepted a role with the Vancouver Winter Olympics and I moved over to Canada.
So good.
And then for the next 10 or so years, I continued to travel with sport and with various projects, both with the Summer Olympics in London to follow, then a combination of Commonwealth Games and Rugby World Cups. And I loved it. It was just the absolute sort of pinnacle of my sporting event management career. Then I moved back to Australia, specifically for the Gold Coast Commonwealth Games at the time, which I led one of the teams there in a sort of spectator experience role.
Yep.
So really focused on the journey and communications that, our 1.2 million spectators had and what that meant for them visiting the Gold Coast and how they would, get around to all the venues, what they would receive in terms of communication, and then delivery of those events. So we had a really huge volunteer program of, upwards of 3,500.
Whoa.
And I stayed on the coast from there. And that's really when Under the Arbour was born. I wanted to come back into the wedding industry. And a lot of my friends started to get married and they'd say, "Hey, Nat, you'd be an awesome wedding celebrant." Like, really? I said, "Oh, I do really love writing." They said, "Oh, would you help marry us?" And so I actually looked into it and thought, yeah, that's achievable. I'll marry you.
Yeah.
So that's really what I guess started Under the Arbour was I initially became a wedding celebrant.
I was wondering what came first, if it was planning or celebrant.
Yeah, it's funny. It was the celebrant side of the business. I was still working in sport at the time. And more and more couples through my friendship groups started to ask me to also help with their weddings. And it wasn't until I often jump on a video call with my couples about 4 or so weeks out to run through or walk through their ceremony flow. And I'd often say, how are you feeling? What are you most excited about? Or, what's making you feel anxious if I'm sensing that that's, how they're feeling. And some of my couples would say or share with me that they were feeling a little bit nervous about maybe the structure of their wedding day. They'd been planning for so long. They'd created a bit of a draft timeline, but things weren't quite connecting for them.
Yep.
And so I just said, well, send it to me. Let me have a look.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can help. And I'd pick up on a few things and maybe make some suggestions. I might have noticed that they'd left, half an hour on their timeline for entrees and then, group 1 of speeches. And I'd say, hey, have you run that by your caterer? They say, oh, no, just, want to squeeze everything in. And I said, yeah, the only thing is that, we need to maybe allow some time for, cleaning up of plateware and cutlery. There's nothing worse than that being collected while speeches are occurring. Mm-hmm. And so just started to support them with, making some light amendments. And then they'd say, oh, Nat, after the ceremony, would you mind staying back just a few hours? Just want to make sure that things run smoothly, and it'd just be so great if you were in our corner. And I'd say, yeah, okay. And they started offering me money. And I thought,
You're like, give me more. So you're like, I'll stay all night.
I thought maybe that is a thing. And for me, it's a passion. It didn't really feel like work. The wedding planning and I guess being a planner my whole life, I didn't really expect I'd necessarily have my own career or business in it. But I did start to adapt, and predominantly now I am probably 60 to 80% in that coordination and planning space, and then the celebrant side of the business is a little smaller.
Yep.
And often I am both for my couples. So we really build that beautiful relationship over a longer period of time. But it completely depends. So it's been quite amazing to see the growth of how the business has changed. Mm-hmm. And we're coming into our 3rd year in November.
How exciting.
I think I'm going to have a birthday party.
Let's do it.
Send it.
Out at, is it Salao? Is that how you say it? The venue that you just started operating with?
Oh, Seela Valley. I'm actually
You looked at
going
me
there
like I
this
said
weekend.
it so wrong. It was like Jemima or something.
Wow. So, like growing up, was it was always sports?
Do you know, individually,
Yeah.
I mean, my family laughed that I got into sport because I was a shocker as a kid. Like, I'm not kidding. I used to pull a sickie on sport carnival days.
Oh, true.
True. It wasn't until I moved overseas that I started to run. Like, I hadn't run more than 3 kilometres in my life, and then started, enjoying the sport of running. And I think actually I owe a lot of my passion for sport from my work in sport.
Yep.
So back in the day would have been Glasgow Commonwealth Games. I worked in the sport of triathlon.
Yep.
And just before the Commonwealth Games, the sport competition manager asked a few of us to come and jump off the pontoon just to test the weight, make sure we're all good.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, yeah, cool. I'll give that a go. However, I'm not super confident in swimming. I think I did the occasional swim, obligatory, younger, but just didn't have the confidence. And after going through that, and I guess in a public forum, it made me want to improve. Mm-hmm. So I actually used to go to the London Aquatic Centre and watch the squads train and just observe what they were doing. Then go on YouTube in the evenings and say, oh, yeah, okay. And then I go and try it myself. And all of a sudden I started entering myself in like triathlons and competing.
Yeah.
And became all right. And so that's really how that personal journey of my sort of sport participation began. But it wasn't something I'd always done. And it's funny, I've done like maybe 3 Ironman triathlons now and 20 marathons. And it was just like my school friends would not think it's the same Nat. Yeah.
You're talking, sorry, I just want to keep going on this a little bit more.
Yeah.
You're talking about the Grand Slam of marathons coming up.
Yeah. So I'm going to the North Pole next year.
Okay.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So in 2018, I completed a marathon on all 7 continents.
Okay.
And I finished up running a marathon in Antarctica.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was really cool. So I'd completed that journey, and everyone used to say, Nat, you've done that. What's next? I thought, I think I'm going to go to the North Pole.
Yeah.
And for 5 years, I've been trying to get there.
Yeah.
And finally, it's going to happen.
What's the process when you say you've been trying to get there? Is there like a short list or something? Or
There can be. I think I'd had a place following the Antarctic run. I did all right there. And then...
How'd you go there?
yeah,
Fill us in.
first. I did all right.
I did all right. I actually came second.
You can't say I did all right.
Yeah, I know. Tell me about it.
Yeah.
Do it all again.
I did all right in the Gold Coast Marathon thinking that I would sign up.
You will next year. So it was mainly restricted in regards to actually physically getting there.
Yeah.
So I was signed up sort of ready to go, and then COVID occurred.
Right.
And so for the next 2 years, there was no event. And then unfortunately, with everything that had been going on with Russia, that has also cancelled the last couple of events.
Yeah.
I do have to fly via Russia for this trip. So I've got to work through a few things with our Australian embassy in terms of being able to get over there and safely, of course.
Yep.
And then basically get helicoptered in and away we go. But it's pretty cool. Like we camp
Yeah.
with rifles.
Sick.
Yeah. And
Let's
then
go shoot bears. Let's go.
So you fly to the north of Russia and then helicopter from there?
we actually fly right into the central. And then there's a couple of flights, it looks like, in terms of the current plans.
Yep.
And then we head out. It used to be via Norway. We used to go via Svalbard.
Yep.
But for this trip, because we're going right into the middle of the Arctic Circle, it's not like on the shelf, and cruising, running in. We're literally going to camp in the middle of the circle.
Wow.
And it's pretty cool. Like I've seen some footage of how the ice float actually moves over a day. And so you're running around and, everything underneath you is moving. So it's, it'll be an incredible life experience. I mean, Antarctica was a phenomenal opportunity. And so in my lifetime to be able to go to both poles and to run it, and if I complete it, only 4 women or 4 Australian women, I would be the 4th, to do it.
Wow.
Bro, come on.
I know.
So I'm excited to do that, but the goal's to win.
Yeah.
Of course.
If you're going to be there, let's win it.
So I'm looking
She'll
for some
do all
training
right.
partners, guys. Yeah.
Some training. I see you running with your kids and stuff.
I was talking about you, but I do run.
I see you've been running with your kids and stuff.
Yeah, Lockie, he's 4.
He would outrun me. Didn't he just run 10Ks at the marathon or something?
He ran 10K in a week. He's run he runs 3K most weekends, but he participated in a mini Olympics yesterday and he won his race. He's great. Bowen, he's the younger one.
Yep.
Bowen's not like Lockie. Bowen's probably going to be in shot put.
Yeah, okay.
He's a tank.
He's a tank, yeah. He's exactly like me.
Yeah.
Just an absolute unit.
Yeah, exactly.
He is. Yeah. So it's so funny how they are, dare I say, polar opposites.
No, that's so flipping cool though.
Very last question on this before we move on back to weddings.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in this. And
Weddings.
They
This
just
is sick.
set up a course somewhere in the North Pole. Like before you get there, they've set up a course or something like that? Or is it all GPS?
Yeah, there will be a course. So usually they put down like little blue flags.
Yep.
And we need to usually run within a metre of those because that's what they've checked the course in terms of the crevasses.
Yep.
Okay.
Because obviously you want to stick to that because it can be quite dangerous.
Yep.
It certainly depends on the conditions. I mean, negative 26 is the predicted climate plus the wind chill.
Yep.
So it will be freezing. And so you want to make sure that when you're running, that your goggles aren't fogged up and that you can actually see and stay in line with those flags, not just for safety, but also because that's what the course is measured on.
Yes.
And, it'll be a long run. It's not fast and flat.
Yeah.
It is actually quite hilly in terms of the terrain. So on the Gold Coast, I'm going to do a lot of my training on soft sand to try and replicate that.
Yep.
And then sit in ice water and just sort of mentally prepare for that.
Yep.
I'm going to try and do some weekend campings and then try and, run off a bad night's sleep.
Yeah.
Which, to be honest, as a mum with a couple of young kids,
Very achievable.
most nights.
Any morning.
Any morning. Just go and run 42 Ks.
Is it the same gear that you would have worn in the Antarctic the same as what you wear up north, or is it different conditions?
I think it'll be similar gear.
Yeah, okay.
I think it's mainly just being aware of not sweating or overheating too much because frostbite is quite a severe fear. So it is just trying to get that balance right. Usually before they officially mark the event start time, we'll have the opportunity after we land from that helicopter to go and run, which before most marathons, you're not likely to need to do that.
Yes.
But in Antarctica, the day before we ran 10K just to really test our equipment, which was really required as an Australian because we just don't have anything near to compare to.
Yeah. They're like, you're from the Gold Coast?
Especially, even that time of year, there won't be any snow anywhere here.
Nothing. And I'm probably definitely not going in the favourite.
Yeah, wow.
I'm very excited for you.
That's so cool.
Thanks,
when was
guys.
that again?
That was 2018.
Sorry, when are you going there?
It'll be 9 months away, April.
9 months, April.
Yeah, dates are confirmed. So we'll block that out for weddings and away we go.
Yeah. So Joel's
How-
got to start training with you now.
Done. Easy.
Easy.
I'll run 1 kilometre with you tomorrow. No, I'll do 5.
Okay.
I'll do 5. That's about it.
You could keep me company. We could have a chat midway through a run.
Done. We'll instead of doing the coffee next week, we'll go for a run.
All right. Well, I'm going to hold you to that.
do it. We need to talk business as well.
All right. Should we move back to weddings?
Sure.
Cool.
So Antarctica. No, seriously.
So Under the Arbour, we were talking a little bit before we started about you've been doing everything by yourself essentially till this point.
Yeah.
Is that sustainable forever?
Definitely not, especially with the ambition to expand and scale.
Yep.
I was doing a lot solo, as you do in new business. You're learning the ropes and navigating all the ups and downs in terms of that journey. I've been really grateful and lucky that I've had a really consistent experience the last few years with the business, and am at that point where I am looking to grow. It's the right time. And so I'm doing that as we speak. I'm actually mentoring some planners and coordinators right now so that I can just teach them really and help them gain experience. They're fresh in the middle of their uni degrees at the moment.
Yep.
And so I'm wanting to share my experiences, my mistakes, and just support them as they become, great planners, and hopefully they can learn with Under the Arbour. And then we'll see where life takes them. But I'm really excited for that journey. We've also got a logistics team. Under the Arbour also has a furniture hire element to our business. So I have someone dedicated to supporting that operation.
Yeah, beautiful.
As well. So we'll be a core team of 6 coming into 2025, which is really exciting.
That's so good.
And the people you have on board at the moment, will they be coming out to weddings for Under the Arbour, or is it kind of all in the office at the moment, or will they be out on site with you as well?
No, they've already been out on site, which is great. I think it's the best way for them to learn.
Yep.
So they've been shadowing me, shadowing
Beautiful.
my calls, which has been really great.
Yep.
And when they're ready, they'll be taking on a lot of the coordination roles for some of my couples too. But we've been doing it together at the moment, which is really great. It's the best way that they can learn.
I think it's awesome. I think you probably more than me, because I guess I had you, but you used to say that you didn't really have much support when you were trying to become a photographer and stuff like that.
There's so many wasted opportunities just because you didn't know what you were doing, and so many opportunities you got but you didn't realize they were an opportunity at the time as well. There's so many epic venues that I shot really, my first one was Hayman Island, and I had so many amazing venues when I first started, but then I just wouldn't post photos or wouldn't take advantage of everything you could because you didn't have someone in your corner being well, you should be doing this and this and this and this. So I think having that mentor, for these people is going to be amazing for them.
Huge.
Yeah, thanks, guys. It's funny, it's the practical experience as well, which often doesn't get taught in the education system. So to be able to show that, you're not learning how to put decor out or crockery and plateware and ensuring that every 68 of those pieces are perfect.
Yeah.
and the expectations that couples will have for us delivering that service, where the name cards are, how the napkins are laid out.
Yeah.
We really care about that.
Yeah. And all the little things that you might not have thought about, or like the little issue that arises, mum does this, dad does that, like just those little nuanced things that pop up on a wedding day, you can't teach that.
Yep.
You know, like you said, everything you can research as much as you want. That's why you go, like if you're doing an apprenticeship as a builder or something, like it's great going to TAFE and learning and reading books and stuff, but like you got to go put that into practice. So the fact that you're providing that for these guys, like that's awesome.
Oh, yeah, thank you. And I can see how appreciative they are. And, they ask questions. I encourage that. And we are a really great little team now.
Yeah.
And I think it's also being able to share, when things are quieter during a wedding day, I ask us to take a step back, look at what's happening, observe the room.
Yep.
And then go, okay, we can be doing this. See that area? We should be clearing this or asking for support here. Next on our timeline is the first dance. Okay, what do we need to prepare that?
Yep.
Is there a cake server by the cake?
Yeah.
Are the candles lit? It's just looking out. And I don't really have a physical checklist anymore. I think that's just, I guess, based on experience.
Yep.
But I still always plan with one. And I will still write a timeline that I share with all of my vendor friends in the lead up to a wedding day.
Yep.
But I'll never look at that on the day because I just know.
Yeah.
And
for
so
sure.
I'm trying to mentor my team. That is a really critical part of planning. But then when you are experienced enough, that stays in your back.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's, I think, the big difference between having like a planner and sometimes you'll just go to a venue and the venue's kind of done everything.
Yep.
And you'll go and do, reception shots. And then you look down the table and like chairs are all over the joint and everything like that. You're like, but then there's like a planner that actually cares about everything and wants those amazing photos and, an amazing experience for all the guests as much as possible.
Yeah.
And everything's just in line and everything looks amazing. And you're like, yes. And like the amounts of times where, an MC will be like, and we're about to, I'm like, dude, just wait. And like you look over the cake table, there isn't a knife there. Or like they've said it and they're like, where's the knife? And then the photographer's running off to grab a knife from somewhere.
Yeah.
It's like, it happens so often.
Yeah. And you'll notice I never run, not in a wedding setting anyway, because I want the guests and also my couple just to feel that everything is in really safe hands.
Yeah.
And so my approach and a lot of my
You
vendor
run enough
friends,
outside of work.
Exactly. You're tired everywhere else.
and stuff. But I'm also wearing high heels often, which is not my preferred choice of footwear. If I could put a pair of runners on, I would love that.
Pair of hokers.
Waiting for that couple that get married in their running shoes.
Yeah. You can just rebrand like that, can't you?
Yeah.
It'd be a thing.
Yeah. What is the bearded? No. What's the
Barefoot
bearded? Yeah, do that.
Yep.
Anyway, don't worry about that.
He's a photographer. I think he's Nui.
Maybe somewhere down that way.
Morning, something like that. He's just rocks up to weddings barefoot.
Oh, cool.
He does like a lot of
Massive beard.
beach weddings with like boardies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that's like his brand. And it's
brand.
pretty sick.
Yeah, okay, that's cool.
So yours is like Hoka and Asics or something.
Not my current sponsor. Shout out to On Running.
Oh, sorry. We'll cut that.
Do you have sponsors for the run? No, I just want to go back to the running. Do you have sponsors like to take you out there?
Not necessarily take me out there. I'm self-funding most of the trip.
Yeah.
And I'll raise awareness for a couple of causes throughout that. I'm just working through that journey at the moment. But I am very grateful that I have some support with equipment and some of the more intricate elements in terms of the logistics and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
I think because one, it's an incredibly crazy adventure. So that most people just think that it's out of its world, and some people just want to be part of the journey. Which
Live
is
vicariously
really cool.
through you.
Yeah,
No,
definitely,
seriously though, like
definitely.
they're not going to do it. Like me, I'm going to stay in my office and just be here.
Yeah,
But if I can somehow be a part of what you're doing, for sure.
Yeah, it was funny. I went to the dentist for, my 6-month checkup the other day, and they were like, "Nat, what's going on with the trip?" And they're like, "Can we sponsor your smile?" I'm like, totally.
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, and some teeth whitening.
Yes, absolutely you can.
Yeah, so that's really cool. But that's, again, I learned through, I think, business in terms of how to approach those conversations. And, I've done a bit of a sponsor pack and what I can give to them as part of that journey. I'm mid-writing a book at the moment. We'll capture content to do a short docu-series, try and get that captured.
Yeah,
So cool.
Because you're not doing enough. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Let's fill that cup.
Yeah, I mean, How do you balance? Like you were saying earlier that you're just pretty much working 7 days a week at the moment.
Yeah.
Like, Steve very much feels that like balance doesn't exist, or it's a myth, and there is never really any balance.
I think if you want to be really good at something, then balance doesn't exist. I think like if you want to do something like you're doing, I don't think you can be balanced because balance isn't going to get you there. That's just my opinion. Whereas I feel like if you want to just like live a nice, comfortable life and everything like that, you can have balance, but you probably won't exceed exceptionally in certain directions.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I have always been a really determined person. I think it is in my nature and character. So the fact that I currently work 7 days a week, it hasn't really bothered me.
Yeah.
I still maintain my social connections, my friendship groups, my family, and I will do what I can to ensure that I have the best balance possible. But it's perhaps not a normal life, like I take my kids out for sunrise walks at, 5 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
I'm not sure many parents do that.
That's so
100%.
good.
But I do that because that's quality time for us.
For sure.
And if that's me going for a run with my son and the other one's in the pram, or just having that half an hour with them before dinner goes on and I go back to my calls with my couples, that's just what needs to happen at the moment, especially in this growth phase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I am aware of it and wanting to get better. So I'll start to put methods in place to bring that down to 6.
Yeah. It's just like something that I've talked to a few people over the years. I remember it being a very common conversation because I kind of came into the industry like just before COVID. And it was a very common conversation that I was hearing a lot from people that had been in the industry where they were like, oh, like I just don't have any balance or actually not even that. It was more so like, how do you balance? They weren't asking me, but like they were just always asking like Mandy or someone like that. They're like, how do you balance? And I think there's a season for balance, but also I think it just takes a different type of person that is okay with not having balance. Like some people that thrive on having balance, like they have to see their friends and they have to do this. And if you're not uncomfortable, just like almost being sold out for building like you see it as a building phase for Under the Arbour, some people would be like, oh, it's just a grind, which sure it is. But like some people just, I don't think could handle it. Maybe that's the type of person that just enjoys the 9 to 5 or like that, or maybe not necessarily enjoys it, but they're just comfortable in that.
I absolutely agree. And I hear you, and everyone has, different character in that sense. I think if you have a plan though, and you plan to succeed, you will.
For sure.
That's what you've just got to set up for yourself and for your business.
Yeah.
So naturally as a planner, I am organized. So I am always looking at what's ahead. And in any downtime, I'm ensuring that I use that time to plan for what is ahead.
Yep.
Because I'll have busier weeks.
Yeah, for sure.
And so if I put those methods in place, I'm writing earlier. I also keep my couples accountable with deadlines well in advance so that I can use those, months out to write for them.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think I just always kind of remember to myself, and like even my wife and I both say it all the time, is like nothing is forever. There'll be months where it's like there'll be 2 months where I'm like, I'm gone every weekend. But then also remember like December and January, I'll be home every weekend as well. So it's like you always got to remember like, yeah, you can be in the throes of it where it's crazy, but this isn't forever and we'll get through it and then we'll be on the other side. And it just kind of always does ebb and flow like that, where like all of a sudden, I remember like a couple of years ago, there was like a January when we were living down at South Golden and we were just at the beach every single day with the kids. There was like a month straight. It was like sunny. All our friends were down there and we're like, this has been the best time ever. But then there might be 2 months after that where you're like, see ya, like I'll be back in 2 months kind of thing. But it's just always ebbs and flows like that. And like going back to, I think it is a certain kind of demeanor, I guess, that kind of accepts that and that's okay. Like I think that kind of ends up having like a pretty exceptional life and growing something, like gives you the chance to be able to grow something through that.
Yeah, I agree. And look, I'm a pretty outdoorsy and adventurous person. So for me, that quality time that I have with my kids is, we're going out finding waterfalls, we're hiking. And it is those mornings. And even though like I sometimes walk into my son's room and it's pitch black and I'm like, hey, you awake?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah. Like, do you want to go for a walk with me? And we'll sit in, like literally on the sand watching the sunrise. And the other day he melted my heart. He looked up at me and he was like, Mum, this is the best day of my life.
So good.
And that's everything.
Yeah,
And
totally.
so, yes, I work hard, but I'll do what I can to still get that quality time with my friendship groups and my family too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something that he'll remember forever as well. Like he'll be able to tell his kids, like, yeah, I remember like getting up and me and mum used to always go down to watch the sunrise together. Like it will be 100% a story that he tells for the rest of his life.
I know, and probably sunrise proposal.
Yeah. Just drilling in early.
This is romantic. You will one day do this with someone else very special.
Yeah.
But I feel sorry for him trying to get, a girlfriend that's going to live up to you. Like it's going to be tough though. Like you got to be active and you got to do this and this and this.
I'll take him for a run.
All right, back to weddings. What's an ideal number of weddings for Under the Arbour at the moment? And what would you like to get that to if it is more within 5 years? Yeah.
Great question. At the moment, we're probably tracking 104 for this. Probably. We are.
Yes.
Yeah,
You're planning.
104. I think that's a definite.
Somewhere around.
For 2024, which is great. We have 19 this month, which is actually our biggest month
Crazy.
this year, or ever, I guess. In terms of scalability, we could probably do, 2 to 300, I think, in a 5-year goal.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
It's definitely achievable when planned well and, investing in your team.
Yeah. In your other roles, I guess you would have were you in charge of bigger teams back in like within the Olympics and other roles that you've had? Have you been in charge of bigger teams within that?
Yes, I have. So when I've led the divisions, probably a full-time team of about 70.
Oh, wow.
And then we scaled, maybe 2 months out to the Olympics to about 150. So you've kind of got that leading until the games and then a volunteer workforce of 3,500 to 5,000.
Yep. Okay.
So I would have had those 70 venue managers, assistant venue managers and coordinators.
Yep.
And then you'd bring on your team leaders, just that last phase. And they're training everybody. We're delivering the Olympics.
Yeah.
And so it is funny, when I started Under the Arbour, it was extremely satisfying in terms of creating a business. But I felt a little bit lonely. At some phases because I was so used to having that support network or team meetings and being in charge.
Yeah.
But I genuinely see my vendor friends, and there are new ones every week because a lot I haven't worked with.
Yep.
They're my team. And although sometimes a lot of the wedding industry are sole traders,
Yep.
we're not alone. And I think that's a big thing for me as Nat, is I want to help connect people, and I want to ensure that everyone that attends a venue where it might be their first experience there or they're meeting other vendors for the first time, I want everyone to feel comfortable, and I really do my best to try and bring that team together.
Yep.
Because for a lot of us, will be our couple's first pick.
Yep.
And we may not know each other, but we're there and we're being booked by them.
Yep.
And so I believe it's my responsibility to help bring us together as a team for the day.
That's awesome.
Even with that role in the past, like I feel like as far as if you are going to scale to double or triple the size, I think as far as you knowing what team members you're going to need to be able to facilitate that, you're going to have a pretty strong idea of what other members you're going to need to be a part of it.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess that's already the 2 that you got on board, and then you might spread out more than that.
Definitely. And having, I guess it's also assessing their strengths, but also the areas that they're wanting to learn. So one of my girls, she's really into social media and building content. And so I'm like, great, let's learn together. Like I will say that I've improved on the social media and content creation. We do a lot of that for our couples as an experience. And, I'm like, let's go through this. So they'll take content at weddings that we're at together and they'll put together a reel, and I'll go, okay, let me have a look at it. And, the other day, such a big win. It was just the way that they lined up a particular, I think the song was Kiss Me. And the kiss was like just as that lyric came through. And I was like, nailed it. And it's just about getting that together. But, I think one of the initial posts that they were drafting for me, I saw a beautiful image of Casa Campana. But just in the background, I could see like half a car.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not okay with that.
Yep.
I was like, okay, this is what I see.
Yeah.
And I was like, we just need to crop that out. And although it's a beautiful shot, I don't want that in it.
Yeah.
And it's just having that eye or attention in terms of what we do put out and also respectfully, what the photographers share too. So it's learning. And we're navigating that together.
Yeah.
Touching on venues, so you're now managing a few places as well?
Yeah, that is exactly right. So we've gone into more of a, industry development role.
Yep.
So combination of venues, whether they're private estates or new venues that have maybe had accommodation as a primary part of their business, but then built a pavilion.
Yeah.
And was like, what do we do with this?
Yeah.
And so as an example, some of our services that we provide is we support the estate owners with operating their wedding element of the business. So for us, we represent the venue. So they'll get Nat on the other end of, inquiries or emails at the moment, but they won't know necessarily it's Nat from Under the Arbour. So I fall under the estate so that there's a consistent experience
perfect.
For them as well.
Yeah.
But we'll deal with inquiry management.
Yeah, beautiful.
And work through that experience or journey from inquiry through to site tours, through to packages, and then conversion to a booking.
Yeah.
And then support with planning process. And then we'll deliver the on-venue coordination for the couple.
Brilliant.
So that's really exciting. We also help some of them with their social media management too. But it's great. It's a really amazing part of the expansion of Under the Arbour.
Yeah.
And probably where my skill set has sat in my past career too, because I used to look at sporting venues for the Olympics or the Commonwealth Games. Some might have been new builds. Some might have been temporary infrastructure just for the games.
Yep.
And so I would look at the venues and go, okay, where are the entry points? How many spectators can we get through an hour?
Yeah.
What resources do we need? What amenities do we need?
for
What are
sure.
the best flows? Where are the photographers going? Where are the best, viewpoints? Are there accredited areas, corporates? How does that all look? Where are the athletes? How do we make sure people don't get back there?
Yeah.
So it's really looking at all the detail from a sporting perspective and assessing the flows.
Yeah.
And I guess it's really just transitioned into estates or venues. But me, again, with the client in the forefront, I can walk into a venue and go, brilliant, that works. But should it rain, what's our fair weather plan? Where do people park? Are there toilets? Are they existing or are they your portable loos? Are things accessible? I think a lot of accessibility these days aren't necessarily considered in a build and they should be. And so I'm looking at that, and I, in some cases, help consult with new estates that are going on that journey, so I can advise at an earlier stage.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I come in later and they found me later, and I can help inform them what's working really well.
Yeah.
But also maybe what their next 12-month or 2-year plan would be to really just elevate the build, because they might not necessarily have that budget up front.
Yeah, for sure.
Finesse things. But then I'm also working with them on packages. So I'm doing all the competitor analysis. I'm looking at what they would be compared to.
Yeah.
That price point, what might be introductory rates, what's included, what's not, what are the venue house rules,
Yes.
what are noise curfews,
Yep.
Massive.
and just trying to really understand, I guess, it from two sides, because although, of course, I'm contracted with the venue, it is the client or the couple that are at the forefront of my mind. So I'm wanting to ensure that things are included for them that make sense. Maybe a later checkout feels right because, we want that, or we want the bridal preparation included. So I'm like, what's going to give the couple the best weekend experience at some of these estates? But also things that perhaps don't matter as much to couples, but everyone thinks that they perhaps in the past have been an inclusion.
Yeah.
Like, actually, no one really cares about that.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah.
worry about that. Don't invest in that.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to save them money up front.
Yeah. Wow. Is this a new avenue for Under the Arbour, or is this being?
It's probably subtly something we've been working on the last 12 months. We support 6 private estates
Oh, wow.
at the present time,
Yeah.
looking to double that
Yep.
in the next 12 months.
Yeah. Okay.
As a goal. But these are people that, may live interstate, but they have their properties here, or that they have invested in an estate and are just not sure what to do with it.
Yeah.
and they, expect it would appeal to couples
Yeah.
for weddings, but just don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how to market it or do anything like that.
Definitely. And look, I love marketing. I studied it. So for me as well, like it's looking at, to begin with, a lot of estates won't necessarily have the surplus to invest in marketing. And so I'm looking at strategies of what we can do that may not cost them upfront, but still help get the reach. So rather than straight away going down paid advertising on the social streams, what can we do? Can we do a showcase? Can we extend the reach in different ways, but still get the word out of the estate? And that was actually a strategy that we used for Sealer Valley. Was, this venue brand new.
Yeah.
We hadn't basically proved that it was going to work necessarily. So rather than spending all this money up front to see if we can get a few couples through, it was like, why don't we invite, some of my vendor friends down? Let's put on a styled shoot.
Yeah.
Let's stay overnight. Let's experience the estate of what is possible and let everyone talk about it. We booked 10 weddings in 7 weeks.
I saw the video from Graham.
Yeah.
Epic.
Oh, thanks.
So
You
good.
did.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Like I saw that. I'm like, I need to go there.
Yeah, you do.
Like, so even like just jumping into like, and it's funny seeing all like your vendor friends on it as well.
Yeah.
Like you see them like jumping into the river and stuff like that. And yeah, that was awesome.
I mean, we had the best time. Like we
looked unreal.
we really did. But that was just, not many people, like initially when I put the invites out, some of the guys were like, Nat, do we have to, like, do you want money from us?
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, no, I want you to experience the estate. Like if you can play for an hour and do a set, to help, entertain the evening, we all contributed. We had the stylists and florists contributing their services.
Yep.
But we all enjoyed each other's, service. And if a lot of the photographers or videographers that were there, they would get to see each other and see each other's end products as well. And other furniture hire companies seeing each other's things and actually meeting face to face for the first time. So it was a beautiful opportunity for vendors to connect, but the primary purpose was to experience the estate and what it had to offer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before we keep going, can you just pull this a bit closer to your mouth again? Sorry. It's just like a couple of times you just kind of like turn away like that and you just can't hear as much.
Just like pull it in if you want.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Thank you.
I wanted to quickly touch on how I feel like, and I remember raving to Steve about this, about how well you ran a giveaway. For me, a lot of people starting out run a giveaway. At least I did. I was one of my first things that I did in business was I ran a giveaway because that was like the best way I thought to get followers and hopefully book new couples. And then, anyone that doesn't end up winning, you can hopefully, retarget them kind of thing. Anyway, so I did that and I see a lot of people doing giveaways, but they're not done well in the sense of, I think a lot of people will think, if I just kind of get this team together and we'll all just like hopefully reach their audience. And then it kind of, if most are like follow these accounts and then, chuck a comment in and that's your entry and like the post or whatever. And you get like 30 comments and you're like, oh, this flopped. Like this sucked. Whereas like obviously our giveaway was epic in my opinion. I don't know about the grand scheme of things of like other people's or whatever, but like it blew my flipping mind away.
Yeah.
And I just remember saying to Steve, like it was run so well. We all put in money towards advertising and stuff. Like it just felt like it was done legit.
Yeah.
Great. That is definitely the primary goal, I think.
Yeah.
I know you're right. Giveaways often had that perception of like, we're new in the industry, let's give something away and try and increase that reach. For me, these days, it's actually a combination of, yes, it's definitely strategy, but it's also about giving back to the community. And I think because I sit a lot in that micro wedding or elopement space, I do see a lot of couples that can't necessarily afford the bigger things. They've got other primary focuses. They might have families these days. So I like the fact that I can and I'm in a position to be able to do that. I also love the marketing behind it. It excites me. So it's putting a great team together of vendors that I want to work alongside and go, hey, let's give away. And I'm often doing it as part of my marketing strategy. I'll do 2 a year. Okay. And for me, it's often at a new estate or somewhere that's trying to get some traction. So it's a good marketing opportunity for the estate specifically. But the planning and I guess some of the secret behind it is just if we invest in it, so we all contribute some monetary value to it, then we can expect to get the reach that we all desire.
Yep.
Okay, so it's just planning some of that collaboration and also ensuring that it's clear. I got some really beautiful feedback from couples that actually didn't win.
Yeah.
And just reaching out saying, I wanted to take the time to say this was really beautifully run. We were really excited about it. And it's clear.
Yeah.
It makes sense. The terms make sense. What is included makes sense. It was, no barrier to entry. And people felt valued throughout, which is great. And so that really excites me because I appreciate hearing that from strangers and that they can see that, we are putting some time behind it. And
For sure.
I'm also introducing all the vendors that are taking part like, hey, this is a little bit about Joel.
Yeah,
It's pretty cool.
I'm cute.
Yeah. Don't think anyone said that.
I'm leaving.
He just wrote on Instagram.
It is a really great opportunity. And of course, some of that extended reach for us is that couples do learn more about us. They are now seeing us as vendors in the industry and want to be part of our service in some capacity.
Yeah.
And so absolutely they'll reach out when they are planning their own elopements. But also I am proactive in reaching them and saying, hey, I saw you entered the giveaway. Do you want to get married?
Yeah.
And so it's just building those relationships and connections. So I have found them a really awesome part of our marketing strategy. And I do really appreciate and love that we can give something back as a team.
Yeah. No, I think it's a beautiful thing, but also to see it done, obviously, like you said, from a marketing background, I think it's really cool. A lot of us or a lot of people in the industry are people just with a dream, essentially. Like that's their passion and that's what they want to do, and they don't necessarily have the knowledge or the research and stuff behind them to make things happen. We as solopreneurs, we do wear a lot of hats. And I know for a fact I would have zero clue how to market something. Or I guess that's not true because I've got a business, but in terms of paid ads and stuff, no clue, zero.
Okay.
I'd end up I think I used to do it early on where I just used to throw $50 at Facebook ads or something.
Boost posts.
We call those donations.
Yeah. And Steve would be like, bro, I see your ads. I'm not an engaged female or whatever.
The amount of photographers' ads I see, I'm like, wrong market.
He's like, you're doing it wrong. And I'm like, I know.
That's okay. Here to help.
Yeah.
But no, I've really loved being part of them. And as I said, I'm really looking forward to our one that's upcoming. Beautiful family.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Coming up, staying, in Pottsville for an extended period of time when they otherwise wouldn't do that. So from a tourism perspective as well, brilliant.
Yeah. And you've got you do have a full marketing plan as well, year round?
Yeah, I do. I have a strategy in place, goals in terms of spend, where I participate in the collectives as well, and just sort of balancing the time. But I do assess it every 12 months in terms of what's working and where I might need to pull back or put more into.
Yeah.
Is there a couple that because it's a conversation we visit all the time where it's do we want to do a magazine or not do we want to do, but it's do you find the value in a magazine or a trail or an expo or style shoots or any of those types of things? Is there two or three things that you if there's another vendor wanting to do stuff and remarket, especially in the current market that the wedding industry is in, is there any tips or thoughts that you want to give to them, something that you do?
I think it's okay to diversify. I think it's okay not to say I'm just doing collectives or trails or I'm just going to use Google Ads or social media. I actually think that the rhythm and the perfect balance is to have a few things going because it does mean that you're not putting everything in a single bucket there. And some things over different seasons will perform better than others. The timing of which I run the giveaways is part of a plan. As well as the relationships that we form together too. That is where it's a non-monetary value, but I spend or invest my time with those friendships and vendor relationships because, as I said, you guys are my team. And so I think if you're new into the industry, at your first few weddings, really do spend the time where you can and when it's appropriate to build those connections and follow up with people.
Yeah.
Like I love it when people say to me, "Oh, Nats, like it was great meeting you. Like I hope to work with you again."
Yeah.
But they genuinely then like the next week reach out and go, "Hey, like tell me a little bit more about your business," or we'll do that follow up.
Yeah.
That's a really important piece for me, is that connection, but also maintaining those friendships. When you say you're going to recommend someone or that you want to work with them again, well, do it.
Yeah. We were saying that earlier. Like now, it's like literally everyone I recommend is from people we've had on the podcast, because we've had that time to sit down with people for like the hour or whatever it is. You have such a big connection to them that it's like it's so easy. Like when people like florists or stylists or celebrants or whatever, as soon as they've been on here and we've actually got to know them a little bit and everything, it's so easy to recommend them because they're still stay the front of mind all the time now.
Yeah,
so
cool.
It's good. Yeah. But I know what you mean. Like it's hard at weddings where it's just like, it's so fast and furious and you get to sit down for 10 minutes before speeches started and everything like that to actually have a conversation.
No, I like the best thing for me is when like my photographer or vendor friends, they send me out a gallery, whether it's sneak peeks or the full portfolio previews, and I will always take the time and say that was an epic, album, if I believe it was, of course.
Yeah.
I don't tell everyone that, but
Just me.
He's cute.
I think it's important that we lift each other up in the industry. It can be a lonely place.
Yeah.
And so if you're seeing people do great things, like let them know.
Yeah.
Share a review, share a testimonial and go, these guys are great to work with.
Yeah.
And I think with my couples, they do trust that referral. And so whether I'm already booked and I'm needing to refer other celebrants or other planners, I do that genuinely in terms of people that I feel value similar to me in terms of that attention to detail or the writing and the uniqueness to what they're bringing to the industry.
Yeah.
And so I'll try and fit them, in that way. But I think we should celebrate all those wins together. But genuinely, it's about just keeping those connections and maintaining them. Like we're going for coffee soon. Oh, actually, a run.
You're going for a run.
Yeah.
Watch out.
I'm sick.
No, you're not.
I'm probably playing golf that day, to be fair.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, honestly, we have been going for 50 minutes.
Well.
Yeah, we better wrap this up. Do you have anything else you want to add before we do?
Oh,
I know I put you on the spot now.
I know. Oh, look, I think there's a quote that I probably live for, both personally and then in business. And it's Maya Angelou. And she often says that, people may not remember what you've said, but they'll never forget how you feel or how you made them feel. And I think for myself and Under the Arbour, that is at the forefront for us in terms of, yes, we'll write beautiful ceremonies, but how we've been able to make guests feel is really the pinnacle for us in what we give to our work and to our couples. It is about that experience. It's a really big thing for us, and I hope that is what sets us apart from others in the industry. It's looking at Nana that might be cold in cocktail hour and she's sitting outside. I have my own Nana's crocheted blanket in my boot.
Yeah.
And I'll go and get that and we'll put it on Nana.
Yeah.
It's the little things. I've given up my shoes to a mother of the bride whose heel snapped, and I will prioritize that. It's the little things that make the difference. And from a coordination perspective, in terms of a lot of people haven't perhaps over the last couple of years seen the value in on the day coordination. And I'm seeing a trend of that changing, which is why I'm preparing for that in our business. Because I know that couples have loved planning their day, but there's a point in time where they do want to hand that over to someone that's going to have their back. And not just...
We hear that very often too, where they just want to, they want to plan everything for their wedding. So then when they're on the wedding day, no one asks me a question. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely. And it's finding the right person that you can trust to deal with that. That does understand you, but also understands the industry and sort of what's important or I guess, where we can adapt and it not be an issue.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's like timelines, 30 minutes here, 30 minutes there. I'm like, that's a plan, but things don't always go to plan.
Totally.
And things may run over, and it's absolutely okay.
it's fine.
But it's communicating with other vendors and going, hey guys, we're just 5 minutes behind here, or kitchen, hold on entrees for 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just knowing who else needs to know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or do I, go and have a chat to dad before speeches and just give him a little bit of a heads up, this is how you use the microphone. It's just that assurance pieces.
Yeah.
And I really pride myself in sort of being able to see or predict some of that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because we can't always assume that things will go to plan.
For sure.
So it's understanding, okay, should scenario A happen, what is our backup plan, but being very comfortable with that.
Yep.
And also understanding if we need to implement it, who else needs to know?
Yep.
That is the question that goes through my head every minute of the day.
Yeah.
And it's just having that experience to be able to, I guess, implement. So that is one thing, we really pride ourselves in as a team, as the experience on the day for our couples and their guests.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Amazing. Thank
So
you
good.
so much for coming on, Nat. It's amazing. Actually, where can people find you if they're looking for you online and everything?
Yeah, no worries. Well, we've got web and socials. We are Under the Arbour.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And do you have any pages or anything open yet for
Sporting?
the Arctic?
Oh, I'm actually in progress. Yeah, I'll have an Australian Sports Foundation page, which will link up to the supported cause I'm going to raise awareness for. So that will be coming live soon, actually.
Brilliant.
But yeah, you can. My Instagram's running around the world.
Okay, awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be able to link to that kind of stuff in show notes and everything like that.
Yeah, cool.
So thank you so much.
I wonder what you do. Awesome. Thanks, Nat.
Thanks so much, Nat.
Thanks, guys. Awesome.
Thanks for tuning in to the Wedco podcast. We're dropping a fresh episode every week featuring industry professionals dishing out the wedding wisdom you need to turn those dreams into reality. Make sure you are following us on social media, you have those notifications turned on so we can help plan your wedding day. Your dream wedding day just got a whole lot easier. Thanks for listening.